What good folks, and welcome back to another What If, and I believe this is What If Naruto was a Saiyan part 5, so please like, comment, subscribe and share the video, and besides all that, enjoy the video. Chapter 9. Minato stood quietly watching his son go over the sealed portion of the Hiraishin. Internally he was always amazed at how Kushina was a natural at seals. Now fast forward to his son and how well the young man grasped the concepts. The fourth Hokage couldn't be more proud of his child. Sitting quietly watched his son work on ways to mark opponents and everyday items with the Hiraishin seal so it was possible to travel great distances quickly, or quicker than a Saiyan could fly. Minato smirked slightly as other thoughts drifted into his mind, like the day after Hinata emerged from her time in the chamber. She had been correct when she dragged Naruto and Sakura into one of the bedrooms. The trio hadn't emerged for 2 whole days instead of just 1. When they finally did emerge, Sakura was taken by 18, Krillin, and Gohan into the time chamber, with 18 making this single comment: "Guess we don't really need to work on your stamina." "Why do you say that, 18? Gohan asked. "If you can fuck for 2 days straight and actually come out looking refreshed, then you don't need stamina and endurance training," 18 stated with a lewd smile. "Speaking of which, Krillin, I think we need our own stamina and endurance training after these exams are done." Gohan chuckled, giving a brief shrug. Krillin gave a goofy grin, nodding rapidly before the trio entered with Sakura. Kushina gave her son a dry, knowing smile. "You know she'll be just as horny coming out as Hinata was." "It's the way of the Saiyan," Vegeta explained, smirking. "Tell me, Kakarot, has your woman taken up sparring with you and your youngest Gaki yet?" Goku smiled, nodding. "Oh yeah, it's been fun, reminds me constantly of our match at the World Martial Arts Tournament." "I can imagine," Videl stated, shifting her weight, trying to weigh down her hair for the umpteenth time since Vegeta's wish had been made. She hadn't had her hair this wild looking since before the fight with Majin Buu. While it was annoying, she felt it brought her closer to her husband and her daughter, who was currently fussing, holding her arms out to her grandpa. "Okay, Pan," she sighed, shaking her head, walking up to her father-in-law. Goku smiled gently, holding the infant out, making weird faces to his granddaughter, getting her to giggle. Videl sighed sadly. She felt a hand on her shoulder, looking up at the red-haired Uzumaki. "All little girls are like that, they look up to their grandpas. Growing up, before I was sent to Konoha, I spent a lot of time with mine. I know, and she doesn't do it all the time. Maybe I'm just a bit jealous. My dad was an orphan and my mom's parents both died when she just got out of her 20s, so I never met my grandparents," Videl explained. Kushina smiled brightly, patting the younger woman on the shoulder, before frowning. "If this is uncomfortable, please let me know, but what happened to your mom?" Videl looked up at the sky, her face giving a pained expression. "She was killed when Vegeta and Nappa first landed on Earth, though I didn't know it at the time." Vegeta's eyes tightened as he listened in. Hearing the aftermath of one of his many earlier sins wasn't comfortable. Even though he didn't perform the ki blast that wiped out that city, he did condone it. "What was your mother doing?" Kushina asked. "She was Dad's wrestling promoter and manager along with most of his students," Videl smiled sadly. "Dad told me she loved the work, going to various cities to promote him. This was before he got into martial arts. She was in that town promoting an upcoming wrestling event when the Saiyans landed." The dark-haired woman leaned forward, tears coming out of her eyes. "Dad was watching the news and caught the big one, just seemed to point his fingers skyward before the screen went blank. Nappa called that attack giant storm," Vegeta stated, watching the sky. "Everything within a 10-mile radius was incinerated." Videl grimaced. She long since forgiven Vegeta, but it was often hard. Her only saving grace was the knowledge that her mother's murderer had been also killed by the prince after Goku crippled the larger Saiyan. "I remember my father had been glued to the television for hours watching the news reports and the live footage. I didn't recognize any of the fighters at the time until Gohan explained everything." The dark-haired woman hugged herself. "It was after that Dad went into martial arts. He promised he never let anyone go through what he went through again." "Wow, that's what I call motivation," Kushina smiled. The dark-haired woman snorted. "Don't be. He covers that aspect by being a blowhard, a goofball, and getting into stuff that's way over his head. I'm glad Cell didn't take him seriously." The woman teared up. "If he had, I'd have lost my dad that day." The red-haired Uzumaki gently pulled the woman into a hug. "Well, things worked out and you got an even bigger family now, not a bane." Videl smiled, wiping her tears as Goku handed Pan back to her, no doubt the infant sensing her mother's stress and wanting to be held. 30. True to form, Sakura emerged, grabbing both her future husband and her sister wife by the hands, dragging both into the bedroom for another round of ball-busting, mind-blowing sex. 18 smirked, crossing her arms over her chest. "Girl has a lot of potential, needs someone who's better at medicine than Gohan though." Oh, I know who we can get to teach her." Kushina jumped up and down excitedly. "Minato-kun, let me take Pervy, Sage and Sochi to look for the old hag after the exams." The blonde-haired Hokage sighed, rubbing his temples. You know she hates it when you call her that. The redhead giggles, eyes sparkling with mischief. So, my cousin needs to brace up and listen to the music. She can't spend her life moping and sucking down sake like it's going out of style. Letting out a long-suffering sigh, nodding. Fine. Once the exams are done, I'll draw up an A-ranked mission scroll to bring back Tsunade to Konoha. 30. Sitting at the dinner table after explaining in detail what her training had been, Sakura waited on bated breath as her parents absorbed the information. She was both encouraged and disheartened at their reaction. Kazashi walked over to a cabinet, pulling out a bottle of sake, not even bothering to pour some into a cup, drank a bit straight from the bottle. Mebuki just sighed, leaning forward, resting her head in her hands. I see, the woman said softly. What are these people like? I only met Vegeta, his wife Bulma, Goku, his son Gohan, his daughter-in-law Videl, his granddaughter Pan, who's really cute, Sakura giggled. His best friend Krillin, Krillin's wife 18, then, and a guy named Piccolo. So I can't really judge everyone, but who I've met were really nice people. But that's nothing compared to how I feel when I'm with Naruto, the rosette-haired girl said softly. Considering how he came off at first, I'm surprised you didn't punch him, Kazashi stated. Sakura sighed, thinking about Naruto's almost overly aggressive act when he woke up in the Forest of Death. I wanted to when he first kissed me, but the longer the kiss went on, the more right it felt. Looking extremely confused, turning to her parents, is that wrong? I mean, when it started I was appalled, then I ended up practically wanting to suck his face off. Is that normal? Kazashi sighed, plopping down in a chair, messaging his temples. This could only happen to a Haruno. If it went that quickly over just a kiss, it may have something to do with your Haruno genes. Mebuki raised a delicate eyebrow. I thought the soul bond stuff was a myth in your family. The pink-haired man sighed, rubbing his temples. No, not a myth, but really rare, like once in every 100 will ever find their soul bond mate. Looks like Sakura found hers at the tender age of 6. Sakura blinked, thinking back to that time before Ino and her Sasuke fangirl indoctrination. She frozen as a memory sparked. Why did I keep going to the park when I knew I would get harassed by bullies? Her answer came in the form an image of an orange-haired boy wearing a white shirt, black shorts, chasing away her bullies, and then after introduction she gave the boy a hug. She sat there looking stunned. I completely forgot I met Naruto when I was 6. It's understandable, sweetheart. You had a lot traumatic experiences with those bullies, Mebuki responded, gently patting her shoulder. Sakura's father smiled softly. Things have gotten better, haven't they? The rosette-haired girl thought about it and nodded. Her life had definitely gotten better. Oh yeah, Naruto-kun and Hinata-chan rocked our world from dusk till dawn twice. Cha. Inner Sakura made her presence known, which in turn caused the outer persona to support a healthy blush and a minor nosebleed, remembering the positions she and Hinata had taken, each one more lewd than the last. It's still kind of surreal to be in a three-way relationship, alongside the Hyuga heiress and Naruto, especially since I wanted to be with Sasuke barely a month ago. Kazashi frowned deeply, remembering what his daughter told him about Sasuke's behavior. While he didn't particularly like Naruto's own behavior regarding his daughter, at least the boy redeemed himself. The Uchiha, on the other hand, the only redeeming factor was Naruto's intervention. I'd killed the little shit personally, and I'm surprised at Naruto's restraint. Sakura sighed. It wasn't pity, more or less it was the fact there were no witnesses, otherwise I'm pretty sure Naruto would have killed Sasuke. Would have been good riddance then, the pink-haired man grumped. Did you and Hinata use any contraception, Sakura-chan? Mebuki asked, a bit now that she was able to fully process her baby girl was no longer a baby. The rosette-haired froze. In their first romp, both she and Hinata did use the contraception jutsu, but 18's constant jabs and lewd jokes had gotten her so hot and bothered the moment she emerged from the time chamber. It took all her willpower not to simply take her future husband and her sister wife right there on the main floor in plain view of Naruto's parents, godmother, and newest friends. Needless to say, she hadn't been thinking clearly when she got her boyfriend and girlfriend into the bedroom. The first time yes, the second time no. Your period? Mebuki went to the calendar, waiting. Sakura and her mother had worked out the days it would start and end since her first a year ago. It won't start for another week, the rosette stated in a heightened tone, gasping for air. This good or bad? Kazashi asked, confused. The blonde-haired Haruno raised a simple eyebrow at her husband. If her period goes late, I'd say we'll have an interesting 9 months to think about it, dear. We won't find out till after the finals and the exams, Sakura morosely stated, mentally praying to whatever kami that would listen that she didn't end up pregnant because of lust-filled stupidity, but according to Vegeta, most first matings turn out to be the factor in providing heirs. Granted, it had been her second mating session, but it had been the first unprotected. I just hope Vegeta-san is wrong. While I like the prospect of giving Naruto-kun some kids, I would really like to wait 3 or 4 years. 30. Hyuga sat in the Caesar position. Surrounding him on both sides was the Elder Council. The reason for the gathering: his eldest daughter asked to spar with her younger sister, and the elders decided to use this as an opportunity to judge if Hinata should be placed in the branch house and make way for Hanabi to become clan heiress. The old fools have no idea what Hinata has been doing the past month. I wouldn't have believed it if Minato and Naruto hadn't taken me there to show me. I feel sorry for Hanabi and would almost feel sorry for the elders, if wasn't for what they plan to do to Hanabi if she loses. Hanabi stood across from her sister, feeling worried both for herself and for her sister, because either way, regardless of the outcome, someone was getting branded. Why did you make this challenge, sister? I didn't make the challenge to fight you, sister, Hinata said softly, glaring at the elders. They put you into this position. If I lose, they think they'll be able to brand me, thinking I'm weak and not worthy of being heir. If you lose, they'll try to brand you, calling you weak for losing to me. The Hyuga heiress snorts in disgust. They should pick their fights better. Once that was said, Minato, Naruto, and Vegeta appeared, the last sneering at the elders, the same type of sneer he used on Goku just before he blasted an entire section of cheering fans after he was given the Majin mark by Babidi. Needless to say, it wasn't a pleasant sight. Hanabi, Hinata smiled faintly, walking forward and hugging her younger sister. After the exam finals, I'll be moving into the Namikaze estate as the 4th Hokage will announce Naruto-kun has chosen the wives to help rebuild his clan. I'm one of them. Hanabi's eyes widened in surprise before letting loose a huge smile. Why, you mean he accepts you, the one you've been dreaming of? Hinata's smile grew and nods. Yes, I have to share him, but I don't mind. The chief elder stood. Never, we will not allow such a thing. Like you are in a position to make threats or demands, I'd say we should do what I wanted to do, and kill them. Less of a headache, Vegeta snorts, watching the elders pale. Hiashi bowed to the Saiyan prince. I apologize to you, Prince Vegeta. The elders are steeped too much in tradition. Traditions must be followed, and I refuse to allow the heiress to marry outside the clan. The eldest of the elders, aka Hyashi's father, Hinata's grandfather, stated. Tradition leads down roads both good and bad. In your case as well as my own, tradition ends badly, Vegeta stated, bringing his hand up, palm spread. This got Minato, Naruto, and Hiashi worried. Hinata simply turned, putting Hanabi behind her. The Saiyan tradition your granddaughter is now a part of was a very bloody tradition. We destroyed entire civilizations just so we could sell their planets. Know this: if you so much as approach one of my subjects or anyone she considers her family with this birdcage seal, I'll personally introduce you to the old Saiyan traditions and render this entire section of the Konoha barren of all life. With that, the Saiyan prince left the room. Hyashi's father looked shakily at his son. Why you let outsiders into our meetings now, Hyashi? The Hyuga clan head glared at his father. You dictated to me once before of our clan's worth and I lost my brother. You planned on dictating to me again of traditions and planned on marking my eldest child with a seal. Do you have any idea what would happen to our clan if I allowed you to follow through with what you planned? Nothing, the elder stated pompously. That is where you would be wrong, Minato stated, making his presence known. Naruto chose Hinata as one of his wives to revive the Uzumaki clan here in Konoha. The Uzumaki clan prides itself on seals, so marking her wouldn't be the real problem between Naruto and Kushina. They'd probably get rid of the seal before the ink finished drying, but it would construe a breach of trust between clans within the village and start a clan war, one the Hyuga clan would lose, doubly so because Naruto will offer the branch family asylum in the Uzumaki clan walls and would be willing to remove the seal as a sign of union between Naruto and Hinata. I'd activate the seal before any of that happened. I make sure the moment she was marked it be activated, the elder stated coldly. I will not allow my clan to be soiled in such a way. Like I'm going to let you slap it on me or my sister, grandfather, Hinata stated haughtily. I asked for this spar to take place to show you how futile it will be, and once the spar is done, I'm taking me and my sister to the Namikaze estate to get as far from you as possible. Humph, the elder stood up, walking over to Hanabi and pushed her away roughly. Naruto grabbed her before she fell, causing the younger girl to blush. He smirked, hoisting her up and over his head for her to sit on his shoulders as he walked back to give his Hinata-chan the room she would need to beat her grandfather into submission. The elder dropped into the traditional gentle fist stance. Hinata, however, seemed to slide into a rather loose and flowing version of the stance. Visually, the elder had seen one far too similar to his liking. Scowling slightly, so like your mother, gentle when she should have been hard, warm instead of cold, kind instead of ruthless. She was such a terrible match for my son, and then she bore you, and I knew you would follow her example, the same weak example. Now you infect Hanabi with your weakness. I'm going to be doing our clan a great favor. Hinata sighed. Shut up and fight. Chapter 10. The Hyuga elder stood gasping for breath. He always considered himself in great shape, keeping himself from getting soft. He trained not as much as in his youth, but enough to keep the edge on. but staring down his failure of a granddaughter who looked like she wasn't even winded irked him like nothing. "Why you, failure, like, your, mother?" the man scowled. Hinata's eyes narrowed slightly. She had compassion and love for everyone, both main and branch. She was weak, she always has been. "If you're," the elder took a deep breath to steady his speech, "if your father had chosen the woman I set him up with, then you and your sister would never come into being. I would have a strong and ruthless grandson right now to train and succeed him. But no, I get you and Hanabi both spitting images of that timid waste of time," Hitomi. Hinata sighed almost sadly, looking at the man. There was no love or even acknowledgement in his eyes, just scorn, hatred. This caused her to wonder, was he involved in mother's death somehow? Both births had been remarkably difficult and doubled as the pregnancies went on, to the point that when Hanabi came, her mother had no strength in her body and her heart gave out. Only subtle well-placed Juuken strikes could mimic flailing health, and no one outside of Tsunade herself could have seen the signs. "Why you murdered her?" the Saiyan Hyuga growled. "You used Juuken to strike at vital points that weakened her health gradually." She watched her grandfather sneer before glancing at Naruto, who gave her a subtle nod. Her rage built up. While she had suspected this to a small degree, she would have never imagined her father's sperm donor to hate her mother so much that he would kill her. "How dare you!" Bringing both her arms across her chest with both her index finger and middle fingers extended. "You are within range of my field of fire. I'm going to end you. Your pathetic Juuken strikes will do nothing." The old man snorted, but secretly he was worried because the stance she was in wasn't even remotely like the 8 trigrams 64 palms jutsu. His worry increased when he saw both of Hinata's fingers began to spark, then a bright yellowish purple glow appear. "Oh, this isn't the 8 trigrams jutsu you're familiar with. This is something I invented with Piccolo-sensei. I combined his strongest key attack with my own version of the 8 trigrams jutsu, one that mother had been working on before her death at apparently your hands, so it's only fitting I use it on you." She did a pirouette, bringing her hands away from her body. 80 trigrams, special beam Gatling cannon. Before the elder could react, Hinata started using a strange corkscrew-style beam of energy that first lanced through his upper arm, destroying muscle, bone, and tissue. The elder could only register the outrageous amounts of pain as his world spiraled into a vortex of blood and gore as the energy beams tore through his entire body in rapid fashion. When Hinata was done, the biggest piece of him was his head, which promptly collapsed to the ground and rolled until it stopped in front of the other elders. She ended her pirouette and dropped her hands, eyes closed with her body shaking. A few seconds later, she felt 2 warm arms wrap around her from behind and another from the front. One behind she knew by his smell, the other, judging by the height, was her little sister. Taking a few deep breaths, opening her eyes, glaring at the other elders. "I will not put myself or my little sister into conflict with the branch family, nor will I turn a blind eye to the main branch's practices of subjugating the branch family. As such, I asked the Uzumaki clan to remove the birdcage seal immediately." "What of Kumo? Surely you don't want our clanmates used as breeding stock?" the eldest woman asked. After how the main family treated the branch family, and if Kumo was willing to give them respect and acknowledgement, then yes, Kumo would be a much more beneficial arrangement than what they have now. "You old hag." Hinata scowled. Everyone, branch members included, jumped at Hinata's mode of speech. This was not the same Hinata the Hyuga clan had come to know. 1. She was speaking with no stutter. 2. She was forceful and determined, yet many of the branch members still saw the kind-hearted girl that adored them as she grew. "This family has been separate for far too long, and I will not stand for it a second longer." Not a single sound was heard until a series of slow claps was heard, prompting everyone to turn to see Hiyashi clapping with pride in his eyes. "I am proud, my daughter. To see you finally live up to your mother's legacy brings great joy to my heart." He paused, walking up to her, Hanabi, and Naruto, pride practically swelling in his chest. "Look at our daughter, Hitomi. I finally see your confidence and gentleness in her. I feared it would take so much more and a great deal more hardship before she became the beautiful flower that I see before me. Whoever this Piccolo is, I must thank him for bringing out my daughter's potential." "T-1000?" Hinata looked at her father questionably. Hiyashi held up a hand, turning to address his youngest. "Hanabi, this is what your mother was like after Kushina fixed her confidence issues. She was warm and kind, but was not afraid to speak her mind and lay down the law." He turned to the elders, glaring at them. "If I find out that any of you had plotted with my father to kill Hitomi, you will be joining him in death." The elders all nodded as Hiyashi smiled faintly at his eldest daughter. "I can see you doing well in the future, Hinata-chan. I am sorry for treating you harshly as I have in the past. I wanted you to gain confidence, and instead I pushed you further into your shell. It took a complete stranger to break you out of that shell." Hinata smiled faintly. She was finally being acknowledged by her father, and it felt both wonderful and a bit bittersweet. It wasn't just you, Kurenai-sensei coddled me. Piccolo-sensei not only helped me with my training, he also helped me realize I would not get anywhere sitting back waiting to be seen. I will no longer sit on the sidelines, I will stand side by side with my intended and my sister wife to usher in changes. Hiyashi nods smiling, I look forward to seeing more in the future. I also would like permission to begin living with Naruto-kun, Hinata said softly. I want to solidify my place at his right side, while Sakura takes her place on his left. After the tuning exams, we plan to form a new team. Hiyashi nodded, if that is your wish then by all means, judging by Naruto's own actions during this conflict he supports any decision we make. He gets a nod from the whisker-marked Saiyan. It is good to see you again Minato, but where is Kushina? Minato blushed and sighed. Kushina and Mikado are currently dead to the world, I believe the term is. Last night both were highly energetic. Translation, Dad got laid 6 ways from Sunday, my godmother and my mother are sleeping blissfully happy. Naruto smiled slyly. The blonde Hokage sighed heavily glancing at his son, I wasn't going to use those terms, son. Semantics, Naruto replied as Hiyashi cleared his throat trying hard not to blush at his longtime friend's expense. Oh what about Neji, and the pull up his ass? You want me to pull it out and beat him with it? Hiyashi thought about it, not the term I would use, but if you can humble him a bit I would be most grateful. His fixation on fate needs to be removed before it gets him killed. Oh, I can do that alright. One order of humble pie coming up, Naruto stated gently running his hand down Hinata's back who was fidgeting with each stroke. He smirked noting she was glancing out the corner of her eyes and then promised him a long night of passion. 30 a day before the finals. Trunks sighed heavily wandering through the hidden leaf, both he and Goten had been encouraged to explore the elemental nations. Encouraged my ass, Dad practically tossed in this world and said, go find a mate worthy of you, Gaki. Trunks sighed again at first he was going to refuse until he thought about it, every girl he's been with lasted maybe a week or less something about their attitude, personality, or lack of fire turned him off. He finally broke down and asked his father what was wrong and the reply came back, you are looking for someone who's strong, it doesn't have to be physical strength either, your mother lacks physical strength at present but she makes it up in 2 areas, she has a powerful mind and an iron will. So here was the demi-Saiyan wandering the hidden leaf looking for someone to spark interest. Needless to say he found plenty of women in the village that did just that, most of the kunoichis were strong and fierce, however most were 10 to 20 years older than himself, while not a bad thing in retrospective it wasn't good either. There were only 3 girls around his age that he met to date, Hinata, Sakura, and Ino. Of the 3 only Ino was single and she reminded him way too much of Krillin's first girlfriend Marin. Needy, physically obsessed with herself, a gossip, and bossy, none sparked much interest and was way too high maintenance. As he wandered his super-sensitive nose picked up the distinct smell of metal, charcoal, borax, and tempering oil. Scanning the buildings he found a blacksmith shop to his right. Higurashi ninja steel, Trunks perked up glancing over his right shoulder at his sword. Well I do need a new whetstone for my sword, and maybe I can order a backup. Walking into the building he saw rows of shinobi gear, shirts, pants, cloth for the headbands, mesh shirts, armor weave shirts. Then there was rows of boxes with shuriken, kunai, blank storage scrolls. In the back behind the counter were the bigger weapons, swords, pole arms, kadachi, sei, nunchucks. Letting out a low whistle, now this is something. See something you like? Came a chipper feminine voice to Trunks' left, he turned and came face to face with a girl whose hair was done in buns, wearing a Chinese-style pink no-sleeve shirt, black pants. She wore a shinobi headband and a pleasant smile, she also looked to be around Trunks' age. See a lot of things I like, Trunks chuckled. Got an awesome shop here, Trunks briefs. Tenten Higurashi, my family owns the place, Tenten chirped. You're new here aren't you? Nodding, yeah my dad practically tossed me and my best friend at his dad and said go explore this new world. Goten took it to heart and flew off, myself I stayed around. That's pretty awesome, the weapon mistress stated, you're from that group Naruto knows right? Yep, Trunks stated. Not against that are you, heard a lot of people bad-mouthing Naruto just walking down the street. Absolutely not, I was one of the only kids in the orphanage that looked after Naruto, well before I got adopted anyway, Tenten said with a pained smile. I'm glad his parents are alive and he's making some new friends. Cool, both drifted off into awkward silence before Trunks smacked his head, sorry, can I get a whetstone and maybe look at some of your sword patterns? Tenten giggled walking behind the counter and pulling out a selection of whetstones and large booklet. Can I have a look at your sword? It'll help determine the whetstone. Trunks unsheathed his sword and casually flipped the sword into the air catching it blade first handing it to her. She looked at it with a great deal of reverence. This is a good quality sword, where did you get it? Trunks smiled sadly. A friend. The weapon mistress nodded, inspecting it, holding it up, checking the edge. A grade 6 whetstone, anything more and it'll warp the edge. She moved all but one of the stone back under the counter. That'll be 350 Rio. Trunk handed her the money. How Trunks got the cash was from his mother. She handed him gold she exchanged from the bank from the family account, which once he and Goten arrived in the elemental nations, they went to the local bank in the Hidden Leaf and had the gold turned into Rio, then split it down the middle for travel, food, and leisure expenses. Why look for another sword? This one is an excellent piece. That's the reason. I like a new sword made mostly so I can put this up and not use it. Give it a nice place of remembrance for my friend, the demi-scion explained. Tenten eyes widened for a second at the realization and blushed a bit. Never thought about that. Well, if you pick out a pattern you like, my dad should be home tomorrow and we can get started the day after the finals. Trunks smiled and nodded, looking down at the booklet, opening it. As he looked, the two got into a long conversation involving their adventures, Tenten's missions with her eccentric sensei, her equally eccentric teammate, and her rather broody other teammate. Emos, Trunks snorted, causing Tenten to giggle. My dad was like that before he met my mom, still is from time to time. Who do you think will win the tournament tomorrow? The weapon mistress asked. Don't think I know Naruto will win, Trunks smirked. How do you know that? Granted, he beat Kiva like he was nothing in the prelims, but he graduated last of his class, Tenten stated. Never ever underestimate someone, just because they ain't the brightest tool in the shed. My godfather grew up virtually by himself in a house in the middle of nowhere. His understanding of the outside in general was so bad he couldn't tell the difference between girls and boys for nearly 10 years. It took him meeting my mom and his wife to break him of that. The demi-scion paused. Sorry, just my godfather is easily the strongest guy in our universe, and Naruto reminds me a lot of him. The girl nodded, smiles. That's not what I mean, but I'm glad someone is sticking up for him. Trunks blushed, scratching the back of his head. Yeah, sorry. Anyway, Naruto got training from my dad, my godfather, and his parents during the month. And let me tell you, I can see why his parents were the strongest ninja in this village at one time. Really, how did they squeeze in so much training? Tenten asked. Trunks thought about it. Well, if you promise not say anything, and maybe if you let me take you out to dinner tonight, I might spill the beans on how he got so much training in, and to sweeten the deal I'll throw it extra for that new sword, pointing at a picture in the booklet. Blushing slightly at being asked out, she paused, looking at the time, and froze. They had been talking for almost 5 hours. Looking stunned, she never had held a conversation with anyone, customer or not, anything longer enough to get orders from her sensei, take an order from a customer, or talk to her foster parents. Glancing at the demi-scion, she found him too nice, cute, appreciated weaponry, and above all didn't talk down to her like most boys she talked to. Only Lee had ever treated her like an equal. Sure, maybe I can weasel some sword tech kinks out of you too, she smirks. Trunks laughed. I'm up for any training you can think of. Chapter 11. 30 Flashback 30. Goten and Trunks frowned at his father as they materialized just outside the Namikaze household. Goku was oblivious to these frowns as his eyes were still closed. When he opened them, he either didn't notice said frowns or ignored them. Okay, Vegeta and I agreed the two of you need stop. Goku paused, focusing. What did Vegeta say? Oh yeah. He said you need to stop going through your flings of the week. So we both felt Naruto's world would be ideal for you two to find girlfriends that you'll actually stay with longer than a week or two. So go and find a girlfriend, Goku stated before using his instant transmission and vanishing. Trunks groaned, looking at his longtime best friend. I knew this was going to happen. Dad's been grumbling about it for almost a year. Goten shrugged. Well, could be a lot worse, but do you know why we were thrown into Naruto's world for this? Well, Dad explained to me before dragging me over to your place. That reason we haven't found any girls we like is that our Saiyan blood wants strong women, even gave examples. My mom's brains, your mom being a fighter, which I am not going to lie, Goten makes your mom hooked. Then you got Videl and the fact she's been training since she was Gohan's age. Then 18, don't know why my future self hates her, but she's hot too, Trunks explained. Goten being the more naive of the two. So really smart or really strong, I got it. The youngest son began using his passive scan of the surrounding area to determine if there were any girls that matched in the strength department. Wow, can you feel that? Most of the girls in this village are leagues better than the girls we've met in school. Trunks did his own passive scan and frowned slightly. Yeah, he continued scanning, and the more he scanned, the more his interest was piqued. Wow, that is a lot, letting loose a sneer that would make his father proud, glancing at his best friend. Looks like we got some browsing to do, Goten. The younger Saiyan snickered. True, he glanced at the capsule Trunks was given. Isn't Minato in the village right now? Maybe we can ask him where the nearest bank is so we can exchange those gold ingots your mom gave you into some spending money, then we can partake in browsing. Right, let's go. The two Demi Saiyans took heading for the Hokage Tower. 30 End flashback 30. Goten was currently flying over a large forest. Unlike Trunks, who settled on looking for the preferable needle in the haystack, Goku's youngest left the confines of the hidden leaf to explore the surrounding countryside. After all, he decided to go out and find the strongest girl around his age. He had scanned the entire hidden leaf and found several girls in his range, but most were well into their 20s and 30s. One did strike his fancy that was in her early 20s, but she was a tad on the sadistic side. Threats of feeding his junk to her snakes kind of put him off. And no other girls really drew his attention. Ino reminded him a little too much of his mother, only without any of her good traits. Sakura and Hinata both were completely devoted to Naruto, so they were out. He sensed a potential candidate, but had also sensed Trunks heading in that direction, so he balked, focusing on higher power levels outside the village. He found one that was really high, almost on par with Naruto's mom when he spotted her, though he noticed she was older than him by a lot regardless of the illusion she was showing, so her candidacy was flushed. With a deep sigh, the Demi Saiyan hovered, eyes closed, stretching out his senses as high and as far as they could go. What he found was both awesome and concerning at the same time. Two other power levels overlapped. The more feminine one he felt, hers was the highest he felt outside of Naruto, Sakura, and Hinata, who had told him and Trunks could only mean one thing. Jinchuriki, he whispered aloud. Not wasting another second, ignited his aura and flew at high speed toward those three power levels. 30. Fu, the Jinchuriki of the seven-tailed stag beetle. Chome was currently battling two men in black cloaks with red clouds printed on them, and she was losing. Gasping heavily, trying to stem the bleeding from holes the loud mouth of the two had given her. She couldn't understand it, at first, how it was possible, until she saw the pentagram underneath the man. She grimaced at the metallic taste in her mouth. Great, internal injuries. She dropped to her knees, could almost feel her two assailants stalking toward her. She knew almost instantly the moment they got to her she would be knocked out and not wake up again. Trying to fight off going unconscious, looking up, her eyes widened at what was approaching her attackers from behind. Hidan smirked, looking down at the Jinchuriki slinging his scythe casually on his shoulder. About fucking time, he snorted, then suddenly he felt an ungodly amount of pain before getting launched into the air. Kakuzu turned in time to see a boy no older than the Jinchuriki bringing his hand up and saw what looked like a jutsu. However, before he could register enough speed to perform a replacement jutsu, his world lit up and he vanished from this mortal world. 30. Goten quickly used his senses to determine that the one he booted into the next forest, finding him surprisingly alive but currently incapacitated. He quickly ran over to the girl. Are you alright? How did you fly? The girl asked him, looking at him warily. Stay back. Easy, I'm not going to hurt you, Goten stated, dropping to one knee, pulling out a hoi poi capsule, pushing the plunger and tossing it to the ground in front of him. A second later there was an explosion of smoke revealing a first aid kit. What's your name? Fu, the girl said, fighting to stay conscious. Please, stay away. Hey, if I don't help you to a point your bijou can finish healing, you could still die, the Demi Saiyan said gently, the girl giving him a disbelieving look. Hey, a friend of mine was a Jinchuriki to the Nine Tails. Might know him, his name's Naruto Utsumaki. Why, you know Naruto-kun? Fu gasped, watching as the dark hair gently cleaning and dressing her two major wounds. Raising an eyebrow at the girl. Yeah, now let's get you someplace safer. That guy I booted is still pretty much alive. He gently picked her up, lifting off, came to a stop some 12 miles above the area. Fu looked around in awe. Oh, I can fly because of my ki. Not completely sure how it works, but I've been doing this since I was 7. Name's Goten-san, by the way. He smiled faintly, the pinked eyes. Jinchuriki looked up at him. Sounded like you like Naruto or something. Fu nodded weakly. He shares my burden, he's like a brother. Met him after he finished a mission in the hidden waterfall village. Chome told me he felt the fox's chakra. Well, as far as I know it's only chakra. The fox was killed the day Naruto was born from inside his seal, by my godmother's husband, Goten explained, looking around the area using his ki to help Fu accelerate her own healing. Judging by the time frame, neither you or Naruto knew about that yet. Fu smiled faintly. Do you do this often, come in and literally sweep a girl off her feet? Goten chuckled, wanting to scratch the back of his head. Actually, this is my first time, so did I do it right? Fu looked down slowly, feeling like she was getting stronger. I don't know, this a first for me too, but one part likes it and the other doesn't. Yeah, I can see why. You're way strong, this might make you feel not so strong, Goten smiled. Plus you're way pretty. Fu blushed. So where are we going? Where do you want to go? I can take you home. The Demi Saiyan asked. feeling a pit of lead suddenly start to well up in her stomach at the thought of going back to her lonely cabin outside the hidden waterfall cabin.
No, please don't take me back there, it's too lonely. Take me to my brother please, her eyes shining, tears at the corner of her eyes.
Sure, Fu, won't your village miss you though? Goten asked, seeing the girl's eyes cloud with both anger and sadness. No, they won't, they barely acknowledge me, Fu whispered. The demi-Saiyan frowned softly, gently running his hand up and down her back in comfort. Okay, let's go, I'm sure Naruto's parents will be happy to see you. His mom was the previous Nine Tails Jinchuriki, so she'll be happy to meet you. Plus I can get to see more of you. Fu turned her head to look up at him, giving him a quizzical expression causing him to blush. 30. Goku, Vegeta, and Mikado stood across from Naruto, Hinata, and Sakura. Two of their expressions were grim while the third was unreadable. Now what we're about to do will no doubt be the hardest and most emotionally painful part of your Saiyan training. You've mastered 200 times gravity surprisingly faster than Vegeta had. Goku smiled faintly at the last part. This even had Vegeta smirking a bit in pride. Naruto, you've pretty much gotten everything I've taught you down. The Kamehameha, Spirit Bomb, Instant Transmission, even my modified version of the Instant Transmission Kamehameha. Which leads me to believe those saps in your academy are even bigger idiots than I first thought, Vegeta growled. Yeah, Sakura spoke up, I mean Naruto-kun, you only needed to be shown those moves 3 or 4 times before you got them. It was amazing, Hinata simply responded. Naruto blushed at all the praise, rubbing the back of his head. Not used to so much. If anyone wonders, your Minato and Kushina's son this past month proves it. More proof that you learning the Shadow Clone Jutsu in 3 hours was not a fluke like many of the Jonin believe, Mikado responded, a faint smile on her face, then glancing at her 2 adult companions. Are you sure this needs to be done? These 3 wish to explore our world after the finals, to better protect themselves from whatever unforeseen circumstance, Vegeta explained. As Kakarot explained, this will be emotionally trying, however the benefit will far outweigh the downside. So what are we doing? Naruto asked. Simple, we're going to get the 3 of you to ascend to Super Saiyan, Goku explained. What does that mean exactly? Hinata asked. Pain of loss, Mikado will be using her advanced genjutsu to put you under something that hopefully transform you, the Saiyan Prince explained. Mikado looked down, her eyes pained. I'm sorry in advance about what you'll each see. That Tsukuyomi will pull from your worst fears of loss. The 3 teens looked at each other quietly for a second before Naruto turned to his godmother. Let's do this one at a time, I'll go first. No, Naruto-kun, let me go first, Sakura stated gently. Naruto glanced at her, looking at her in worry. You sure? Yeah, all 3 of us have had painful pasts, Hinata because of her clan, you because everyone thought you were the Nine Tails, and me with the bullying and Sasuke's cruelty, but I think I'll take longer, Sakura stated. Actually Sakura, I think you'll go the fastest, Mikado stated, causing the 3 teens to turn to her. This isn't about your painful past, though it will make things easier for you to visualize. No, this is about pain of loss, what you fear the most about losing. And you only have 2 things you fear losing above all else, your mother, Hinata, and Naruto. Sakura suddenly started shivering. The trio mentioned have been her pillars, without them she knew that her life would have no meaning. I see, taking a deep breath. I'm ready. The Uchiha matriarch smiled softly. I admire your courage, Sakura. Her eyes morphed first into her Sharingan, spinning wildly before morphing again into her unique Masenkyo Sharingan, which looked Demon Wind Shuriken, which began spinning. Tsukuyomi. 30Q Anakin's Dark Deeds from Star Wars Episode 330. Sakura found herself frozen in place, watching first as the preliminary match between Hinata and Neji, only this version was going terribly wrong. The redhead watched her sister wife bleeding profusely from the mouth and gasping out in pain. Using her ki sensing abilities, felt Hinata's ki rapidly dropping. It is your fate to die, Lady Hinata, for being weak and useless. Neji charged forward, dipping under Hinata's weakened strike, slamming into her heart. Sakura could almost feel Hinata's heart explode. She watched helplessly as her future sister wife dropped bonelessly to the ground, sadness and rage building. Hinata! Sakura screamed, tears falling. 30. The scene changed to that of Hidden Leaf. She spotted her mother speaking jovially with Ino, but Sakura could sense something hovering above the village. Looking up, she spotted a strange gray and purple being, arms crossed, smirking cruelly at the village below. Frieza, Sakura whispered, her heart in her throat. Looking quickly to the village, everyone run. No one heard her as Frieza powered up his death ball. Sakura had just a second to watch her mother and Ino laugh before the entire village erupted into a massive fireball. Mon, Fainu. Rage and despair rose, Sakura clenching and unclenching her hands, tears streaming down her cheeks. 30. Outside the Genjutsu, Naruto, Hinata, Goku, Mikoto, and Vegeta all watched as Sakura was bathed in a purplish light that periodically giving off a golden aura, her hair going from her bright red hair to golden blonde, and her normally jade eyes turning teal. Almost there, Vegeta whispered. 30 and Music Q30 begin Battle of Heroes from Star Wars Episode 3 Q30. Sakura tried to wipe her eyes as the burning crater that had been her village dissolved and transformed into a large lake and waterfall bookended by two large statues of Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha. Standing on the head of Madara Uchiha was Sasuke and atop Hashirama was Naruto, only he was not dressed as he was now but in his old Kill Me orange jumpsuit, and he had blonde hair. Confused, then the fierce battle began. Naruto leapt to the Madara, throwing punch at Sasuke, who dodged it. Punches, dodges, kicks, blocks, kunai thrown. Sakura smiled faintly as Naruto slammed Sasuke through the surface of the lake. Landing a few yards away, summoning several shadow clones, Sasuke broke the surface, glaring coldly at Naruto. Words were spoken, but to the redhead couldn't make them out. Sending all his clones at once, trying to overwhelm the Uchiha, but the Sharingan kept said Uchiha from taking any major damage as the last clone was dispersed, quickly going through a series of hand signs, and a series of chirps were heard. That's Kakashi-sensei's Chidori. Naruto countered by summoning a shadow clone and quickly activated his Rasengan. The two charged at each other as soon as the two jutsu collided, a bright flash followed by the two combatants flying in opposite directions, both back-flipping and landing on their feet. Both growling deeply at the other, Sasuke's face started getting marred black markings that seemed to glow menacingly, as they cascade over his body, quickly blending together to give his skin a gray texture and giving him wings. Sakura shifted her gaze to Naruto, who was being coated in a red malicious chakra, eyes turning into red slits, his whisker marks becoming more defined and his teeth elongating. Sasuke resummoned his Chidori, only this version looking far more evil, while Naruto seemed to create a Rasengan using the chakra cloak, turning it from blue to purple. The two charged at each other again, the stronger attacks colliding again, only this time the backlash was 10 times worse. Sasuke, however, was able to come out on top, driving his Chidori-covered fist deep into Naruto's heart. Sakura watched helplessly as both were flung back again, Sasuke rendered unconscious while Naruto slumped to surface of the water, a massive hole in his chest. Naruto weakly turned over, glancing at Sasuke, and smirked. "I promised Sakura-chan I'd bring you back, team." He chuckled weakly, his eyes beginning to dull. "Better be good to her, she deserves it. Wish it would have been me," he whispered, tears up. "Better love her like I do." 30. Sakura's heartbeat seemed to freeze. "No, Naruto, I'm yours, not his." Not realizing it, she ran over to him, grabbing him. "You baka, I never asked you to do this." Sorry Sakura-chan," the blonde whispered. No. Sakura's eyes welled up with tears. "Please stay with me, you're supposed to marry me and Hinata, become Hokage, why, you see, can't do that, if you're dead." Love. Sakura heard more than Naruto pass, her eyes closed as overwhelming heart-wrenching pain enveloped her. "No. Naruto." The rage at her helplessness along the sadness of it all was too much, causing the dam to break. A huge explosion in her core spread outward. 30 and Music Q30. The illusion vanished, mostly because Mikoto had to be held upright by Vegeta and Goku as Sakura's Super Saiyan transformation took place. Her golden aura exploded across the entire training ground and upward. Her head reared back in agony, her once red hair and jade green eyes became blonde and teal. The initial explosion ended, Sakura slumped her head forward, burying her face in her hands, sobbing. She felt two sets of arms embrace her. "It's over, Sakura-chan." Her heart exploded in something else, overwhelming relief. "Hinata and I are here, we're safe," Naruto whispered, pulling her head into his shoulder. "Naruto-kun," Sakura whimpered, sobbing into his shoulder. "I think it would be a good idea to give them a break," Mikoto whispered to the two Saiyans. I don't know what was in that illusion, but it was devastating to Sakura. "TCH, fine, we have until the end of the week anyway," Vegeta stated. "Naruto, take Sakura home," Mikoto stated softly. "Yeah," Naruto smiled, a strained smile, picking up his sobbing fiancé bridal style, and launched into the air. "And Naruto-kun, maybe we can bring her mom and Ino over," Hinata stated. Sakura smiled faintly. "That sounds really good," she sniffled. Thanks for listening, and remember, the disrespect is real. Goodbye.